The African Growth and Opportunity Act Forum, which wrapped up in Johannesburg this weekend, concluded with a call for a 10-year extension of the United States trade initiative with the African continent. The act grants exports from qualifying African countries duty-free access to the U.S. market. Well, the present agreement is due to expire in September in 2025, in fact. For more on this, let's speak to Nedlac's convener, Thulani Tshefuta. A very good evening to you, sir. Good to have your time. So the consensus, especially from the African delegation as expressed by the South African government yesterday, was that the agreement itself does not need a wholesale review or rewriting, but that certain tweaks should be made. What do you think those should be?
Well, thank you very much, and good evening, Tembekile, and your viewers at home this Sunday. We hold this conversation after what we can truly confirm, as stated, a successful 20th forum of the AGOA summit. The first amongst those that should be prioritized in any change must be definitely the extension of the AGOA benefit. And in our civil society forum, we called for 20 years, which does not only make up for a good rhyme of 20 years of extension emanating from the 20th forum, but it also brings about sufficient longevity of the luxury of time for investors to have certainty that this instrument is still going to be there. But secondly, we believe that all beneficiaries must be maintained. Thirdly, we believe that there are aspects that are not included. There could be additional products that can be added into the benefit of AGOA. And some of those may include areas of technology. And so there is scope, we believe, for expansion of the products that are included in the benefit.
This 20-year extension that you all want, of course, is dependent on the way in which the U.S. Congress will go, because that is where the legislative process is now due to unfold. At this point, you've only got AGOA in the bag until 2025. Is it too soon to start thinking of Plan B should it fall through, or if the extension that is granted is not the one that the African side wants from this?
There has to be consideration for that Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D in any eventuality, whether AGOA goes through or it falls through. And I'm saying that should be a consideration because the galvanization of the South African market currently for trade under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area should be a mobilizing center of coordination anyway, whether those products go to the American markets, to the European markets, to the Asian markets, or even for consumption intra-Africa. So that consideration must be made. And when AGOA comes, it must just be an extension of what is there, because we also know that the American market, even for the South African trade, is the second biggest trading partner after China. And so those considerations must definitely be made on how we go about expanding trade as part of our economic growth. Right. What we argued in the forum, Tembekile, is that manufacturing must not only happen because there is AGOA. It is a key component of economic growth, including export trade. It is an essential factor in the growth equation.
Would the more than 30 African countries covered under this pact with the U.S., would they be able to survive without AGOA, given just how much trade comes from there?
It would definitely be a very significant negative dent that would affect these countries, because the numbers that we have seen in terms of the extent to which countries have benefited from AGOA would definitely be a significant regression from the trade that these countries are doing. There are smaller countries like Lesotho who have actually leveraged the 0% tariff in trading with the U.S. And so when you take that away, it sets them back many decades from exports and trade.
How prominent, Thulani, were conversations at the AGOA summit, I'm curious, about the very different positions that South Africa, for example, and the United States hold on issues such as Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, because going into this gathering, there was a lot of nervousness that some, even within the U.S. Congress, were saying, well, South Africa's standing as a member of the pact should be questioned and perhaps reviewed itself because we, as a country, or at least the government, has taken such a different position from Washington on the war in Ukraine, the war in Gaza currently.
Well, I attended the forum from the beginning to the end, and I can confirm that there are some speakers that have raised those, but I can also give surety to your viewers that we must commend the diplomatic engagement that were led by South African government as built up towards this forum, because those diplomatic engagements minimized and mitigated the risk of the forum collapsing on the rise of those issues. And so I think that there has been a mutual respect and appreciation that there will be those diplomatic differences, but let's not allow the forum itself to be sidestepped by the issues where these countries are not agreeing on. And so the raising of those issues, in my observation from the floor of the forum, did not in any way deter the focus on the substance of the issues that have to do with trade and AGOA.
The Americans have still gone ahead nonetheless and removed other African states that had benefited from this pact, among them Burkina Faso, Uganda, namely Burkina Faso because of the coups there in the last year and a half. And when it comes to Uganda, the contentious issue between that country and the Americans has to do with the anti-gay laws recently passed in Uganda. I wonder if South Africa's position is that economics and politics should not mix, and if so, can that ever actually work?
Well, in the case of those countries that have been set aside and delisted, we actually took that as a challenge in the civil society forum of AGOA, where we said when those emerge, we must basically not only play a blame game, but we must see it as an opportunity for us to reflect on ourselves and see what we can do better. In the forum itself, across all the sessions that were there, there was a dedicated discussion on human rights, upholding of human rights, so that the products or the goods that emerge or that are taken into the American market are not goods or products that are produced by hands and the toil of workers who are abused in their respective countries. We came to the realization and acceptance across board that workers' rights are human rights, and therefore we must do better as African countries on our own without being pushed through the trade instruments like AGOA for us to uphold those human rights.
Thulani Tshefuta, Nedlac convenor, good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time tonight.